Hi, a little while ago I made a video about what we have in common with narcissists, and a lot of people didn't like it because, when you're not an overt narcissist, you are a covert narcissist, which means basically a vulnerable narcissist or like a typical Donald Trump narcissist, okay? And some of them are really very good actors. You're never gonna see them act like a narcissist, but behind closed doors, that's what they are. Narcissism is a defense mechanism that everybody can have. You can go through a narcissistic phase. You can have a narcissistic style about you, but in reality, you're suffering from another disorder. So obviously, it's not healthy. It's not healthy, that's clear. But it's a very complex thing. But I'm going to point out some points where I think all of us are a little narcissistic. And then some points where you can really distinguish and know that you are not a narcissist, if you have these traits. So just disclaimer, this is not the entire list of narcissistic traits that because everybody could have one or two or three. If you Google narcissistic traits, you can go through the list and you will check at least a few points, I'm telling you. The difference also, first of all, is the excessiveness of it. So everybody is on the spectrum of narcissism, but it's about the excessiveness. So the first point is the need for admiration, validation, praise, and feeling special. Like, let's be honest, everybody wants to feel special. We're all unique, so there's some truth to it. A narcissist or full-blown narcissist will need it excessively, and if they don't get it, they're not going to ask, really. Maybe they will sometimes, but most of the times they will just act out and they will punish you. And that's one of the differences between a normal person and a narcissist, between a human and a demon. It's attention seeking. That's also a narcissistic trait that a lot of us suffer from. It goes in with being special, feeling, wanting validation, with wanting to be loved. That is an automatic thing that we also feel like we want attention, right? But if it's excessive and if you're jealous of everything your partner does that doesn't involve you, then that's a big issue, and that's a narcissistic trait. The other thing that some of us do is being passive aggressive. Now, narcissists can be overtly aggressive, like verbally abusive, physically abusive, all of these things, manipulative, all of these things. But that's where it's like a gray zone, because some of us have gone through trauma where we're not allowed to express ourselves, and that's why we become passive aggressive. But that's hits a point. Narcissists went through trauma, and if you don't heal from these things, and if you go into the extreme, then you're at a high risk of becoming a narcissist. So be careful with passive aggressiveness. It's always better to be direct. It's always better to be direct. If you assume something about another person, ask. I've heard about so many people who mess up their relationships because they just assume shit for months, and then it just adds up, and the same thing happened to me. It adds up, and then one day you're like, you always do this, you always do that, and the other person can do nothing right anymore because it's been festering, it's been growing, you have resentment, Be direct, ask questions. That's always gonna be perceived well if the other person is not really toxic. So if you're scared of confrontation, ask questions. Because if the other person reacts negatively, you can always say, I was just asking a question. And obviously, not a rude question, Logic, right? Anyways. So 2 more points. 1, this can go 2 ways. How do you react to criticism? So all criticism is never amazing, okay? Don't get me wrong. But do you lash out? Do you overreact? That is a narcissistic trait that a lot of us have and suffer from. So we have to distinguish if somebody is criticizing us in a constructive way. Like, what is the intention behind, right? Are they just criticizing us, or are they actually putting us down? And the lines are blurry because sometimes we are very sensitive and sometimes it will just feel like they're putting us down even when they're not. That's why we have to know ourselves. We have to be aware of our traumas or triggers and think, like, when we feel something, what does that remind you of? Like, does this remind you of somebody in the past who treated you horrible, who traumatized you? Most likely that means you're overreacting, and that's not a bad thing. If you're in a relationship or friendship that is healthy, you are able and you should let the other person know what your triggers are. Like, tell them, look, this kind of reminds me of this and that. I'm not saying you are like that person, but, you know, just think about it and sit down and maybe find a different way to communicate, you know? And the last thing, which not all of us suffer from, but a lot of us do, especially people who tend to be coupled up with narcissists, or they accept narcissists as romantic partners, is lack of boundaries. This annoys me so much because I've been a person who has no boundaries, and I've also been with a person who was a narcissist and he had no boundaries, and that was, you know, so if you're not a narcissist, lack of boundaries can be you're a people pleaser, you don't say no, you are a bit of a doormat. I'm sorry to say, these things are not inherently narcissistic, right? It's a problem, but what it means for a narcissist to have no boundaries is maybe all of these things, but that can only last for a short amount of time, where they love bombing you and then they just drop everything. Or other people, for example, you're in a relationship and that person, that narcissist, most likely is very jealous. So one day, imagine, happened to me actually, you are with your lovely narcissistic demon, okay, walking hand in hand, and then a random girl runs up to them and embraces them. Oh, I miss you so much. And you're like, and you feel like crap, because if that happened to you, the narcissist would freak out. They would like punish you for weeks, you know. But if it happens to them, obviously, oh, I didn't know. Oh, so obviously narcissists are hypocrites to no end. But that's lack of boundaries, you know. Instead of being like, oh, hi, you know, da da da, like, this is my girlfriend. No, that's not what a narcissist would do. Most likely, okay? As I said, if you're in the love bombing stage, it can look very different, but it doesn't last, you know? It doesn't last. And one more point, black and white thinking. It's something all of us can be a victim of, but let me just show you an example of a diagnosed narcissist who is also a professor of psychology, which is very funny. If you watch his videos, he really shares like what a narcissist really thinks like. And yeah, let's just watch it and you will understand what I mean with extreme black and white thinking, and that's narcissistic.
Just your usefulness ran out. Whatever the case may be, maybe I found an alternative. Whatever the case may be, on Monday you were number one. On Tuesday, I barely recall your name and I can't conjure up your face in my imagination. And I'm kidding you not. That's not an exaggeration. On Tuesday, you're gone. I don't care about you. I don't care if you die. You're utterly gone. And just the day before, you were my life partner. You were my business partner. You were my best friend. You were my everything. You were my life. you are amazing, you are the entire universe, and the next day you're nobody, you're nothing, you are something a scrape of my shoe, if I have time to.
So I just have two more points to make sure that you are not a narcissist, okay? Why I'm emphasizing on you is because a narcissist knows how to fake. With narcissists, if you are trying to understand if the person you're dealing with is a narcissist or not, I'm gonna tell you one thing. It shouldn't be that big of a question. If you're thinking about it too hard, most likely there's something off. And it doesn't really matter if they're a narcissist or not. Something is off. Your intuition is right. Okay, I'm here to tell you your intuition is right. You may not want to hear this, but if you have to think too much, there's something up. You really have to sit down and really think about it properly, but overthinking and over questioning and over analyzing is not a good sign. It's not a good sign. It should be very clear. If you think, oh, is he the one, it should be very clear. I'm telling you, because now I have the one and I know how it feels like, I know how it is. And it doesn't mean that everything is perfect, but you shouldn't question over and over again if they're a narcissist, because it's gonna be clear. It's gonna be clear, I'm telling you, you're not this unicorn where you're destined to be with a demon. That's what I thought. So, the first most important thing is, we have 2 points. How do you see that you're not a narcissist? You can put yourself in other people's shoes. You have actual empathy. So not just seeing a situation like, oh, that's bad, that's a bad situation. That's mental empathy, but feeling, like you put yourself in other people's shoes. If somebody cries, you will feel like you want to cry. And not all the time, okay? Sometimes I'm numb. Everybody has this sometimes, but in general, if you think back on your whole life and you were never able to feel what the other person is feeling, like imagine how it feels like. You have to really try hard to do that, then you're a narcissist. The last point, which it has to do with conversation. So they are very bad at conversations. Very bad at conversations. A narcissist cannot really have a proper back and forth. What they do is they're having a full-on lecture. They're having a lecture, okay? You have to listen to them. If you interrupt them with anything, they're gonna be angry. So if you are that person, like, don't get me wrong, you want to get a point across and you want to finish. Maybe it can take a little while, okay? It can, sometimes, if it's something elaborate. Yeah, you want to be listened to from the beginning to the end, okay. But do you want to do this all the time? No, if you're not a narcissist. If you're a narcissist, sometimes they're just gonna be numb and like, oh yeah, there she goes again, there he goes again, yeah. That's what my ex-narcissist always did. Yeah. Not really listening at all. There's no back and forth. And then sometimes it was just berating me, like ranting all the time, you have to listen to everything, and it doesn't matter what you say. They don't care about what you say. They just want the attention. And then also in a fight, it's like, yeah, I think that's it. I think it's very clear. If you want to add anything, add something, please. And don't be delusional. Like, we're all on the spectrum. We're all on the narcissism spectrum. We all have an ego. We all have some sort of pride, wanting to feel special. All of these things. It's normal, okay? And let me tell you though, the hole that everybody of us has to be not massive, okay? It can't be a black hole where everything that goes through is just goes through an empty void. That's what a narcissist is. It's just an empty void. The amount of love, whatever they will get, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't, you know? And for us as well, like, we have to heal to a certain degree to be able to be open for real love, because otherwise we're not going to believe it. We're not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm special. Yeah, I received this. I received this love. We're not going to do that if we're not healed. But don't forget, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be 100% healed. You don't have to love every single aspect of yourself to find true love. Take care.